So imposter syndrome is an important one to talk about because the statistic I've found, I think there's lots of different statistics, but they're all very high. So the one that I got was 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives, and that it's common across all demographics and all professions. So it's something that most people are going to experience in their life.
It's literally, you feel like you don't belong. You feel like you're a kind of like, who are you to be in this energy? When all I feel, you just feel anxious. You feel, it sets you back on your journey a bit, because you kind of get to a certain stage and you're like, is this for me? Am I doing the right thing? And what am I even doing here?
But then afterwards, when we got through, I did think, oh gosh, like I'm gonna really have to do this now. You know? And I was like, I really want the tracksuit, but I'm not sure I want to do all the exercise. Yeah. So we always start with a quote. And so we were looking at quotes, and there was one from Adam Grant, and who's a psychologist. And it's that imposter syndrome is a paradox. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like we believe other people over ourselves. Like with imposter syndrome, we think that we don't belong in this new reality because of our old reality and the learned behavior, the conditioning. We believe that this is what we are, and we feel like we don't belong. Then when we start to embody a higher vibrational reality, it makes us just feel uncomfortable. It's alien to us. But in actual fact, we were imposters in our own life, because that was learned behavior, and we're actually starting to embody who we were always meant to be.
Yeah.
So this is, I think it's just it's such an unfamiliar territory to us that we start to think that we don't belong there.
Yeah. And when you think about it, that's what when we're saying that it's a paradox. It doesn't really make sense in that, you know, we don't believe in ourselves, yeah, but other people are believing in us. And it's like, but if you don't believe in yourself, why aren't you believing in the other people that's believing in you?
Exactly.
It's a strange cycle there, isn't it?
Yeah. This came to me the other day, and I spoke on it a little bit. A friend of mine shared a meme, and the meme was like, the therapist said, you are worthy of love. And it says, me answered, I don't believe you, continue. And I commented underneath, I have written on my wall, I am enough. And I don't believe it. I stand across from it every morning when I'm doing my exercise, and I look away. I give it the side eye, because I'm like, I don't believe it. And from his meme, I was like, why am I believing? He said, I mentioned that in the comments, and he said something really nice. And I was like, okay, you know, why do I believe his words, but I don't believe my own? And then I was like, I changed the wording of I am enough to you are enough. And I wrote you are enough instead, and I believe it. Why don't I believe I am enough, but I believe it's kind of said you are enough? Like, it's the same thing, but it's just said by a different person, you know?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is an important one to talk about because the statistic I've found, I think there's lots of different statistics, but they're all very high. So the one that I got was 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives, and that it's common across all demographics and all professions. So it's something that most people are going to experience in their life. What does it look like if you're suffering from imposter syndrome? What kind of things are you going to be doing?
But for me personally, when I was transitioning out of what I call poverty consciousness into abundance consciousness, it's literally, you feel like you don't belong. You feel like you're a kind of like, who are you to be in this energy when all I've ever known is lack or fear? And it's like, you know, are people going to just, how am I supposed to embody this kind of reality when I've been conditioned to learn everything else? And it's you're not consciously thinking this. You're literally, you've been this way your whole life, but yet you're coming into your true self, and that's an alien to you. And it's like, you just feel anxious. You feel, it sets you back on your journey a bit, because you kind of get to a certain stage and you're like, is this for me? Am I doing the right thing? And what am I even doing here? So yeah, it takes a long time to kind of overcome that fear, you know, or do you revert to your old life again? Do you go backwards, you
Yeah.
know, or do you step into that unknown?
Yeah. I remember when so I'd started karate. I'd started karate because I out of fear really, because I thought I thought I'd had a heart attack. I didn't, but it was anxiety. But I was like, I need to exercise. I don't do any exercise. So I started karate, and then very quickly I got swept into this whirlwind where, like, I think it started in the July, and then the February afterwards, I was like invited to try out for this the team GB. It's not the Olympics, but it's still, you know, the Great Britain martial arts team. And I remember standing there, and at first, like me, because my sister was there, and I think if my sister hadn't been there, and I had somebody who also was like, "This is ridiculous," you know, that we could bounce off, and we were just like, I remember we walked up to the judges, and they asked us a question, and we were just like going, "We're just happy to be here," like we were just like, "Woo!" Not really taking it seriously because it seems a bit ridiculous, like
You
we were
made it a dream.
imposters, but in a playful way in that situation. But then afterwards, when we got through, I did think, oh gosh, like I'm gonna really have to do this now, you know? And I was like, I really want the tracksuit, but I'm not sure I want to do all the exercise. Yeah, but yeah, so even that imposter feeling doesn't actually have to be manifest as like anxiety. Like it's just like at the time, and that's obviously when it's more problematic. But me and my sister absolutely felt like imposters there. But because we were bouncing off each other, we were like, "Yay!" We were sounded so ridiculous. You know, everybody's there being really like preparing themselves
I could
before,
imagine, yeah.
just like la 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 la, dancing around with like, we just try to keep warmed up like this. and he looked at us and we were like, we're just happy to be here. It was great. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
anyway. Yeah, so it can come out in lots of different ways, can't it? And I think what I like to say is be something and the universe catches up. And no matter what you believe, whether you're into spiritual stuff or you know, you're not into spiritual stuff, it still makes sense, because if you're in spiritual stuff and manifestation, it obviously makes sense. But even if you don't believe in that stuff, like if you are behaving like the person that is going to get certain things, then you are going to bring those things into your life, aren't you?
Yeah,
exactly. If you're not behaving like an athlete, then you're not going to be an athlete. You're exactly. In a much better place to get the things you want if you're being already that person and not waiting for it to land on your lap.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, embody it.
Yeah. But the thing that isn't so much talked about, I think, which is why this is important, is that you're ill prepared for that transition period where you're like, right, I'm going to be this, and you're putting your effort in, and you're doing all the stuff, and then there's this shift, and it's like, hold on a minute, this doesn't feel, something feels weird, something feels strange here. It's because you're moving out of the familiar into the unknown territory, isn't it?
Exactly. It is. It's scary, and I like, this is for all kind of walks of life. It's like the ego versus soul. It's the past versus present. And I liken it to having one foot on an old boat and one foot on the other boat. So the old boat is your old reality, your old self, and the new boat is the new reality. You've got a taste for it. This is what you want, but you're kind of going, Jesus, you know, I don't know anything about this. Should I not stay where it's familiar? You know, it's comfortable here. You know, I know this. I've been this person my whole life. You know, is it not safer to stay where I am? And you're like, how can I fit in this new boat? Mm-hmm. And so what you do is you embody it. You start to act as if it's already yours. Yeah. You know, change your vibration. You know, raise your vibration a little higher. You know, believe it. You believe it before you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is that kind of, you know, I think you used this description in the last one where you're like, you've got one foot in one boat and one foot in the other, and you're like, oh hell,
you're going, what do I do? And like, you know, it's so unfamiliar on this new boat. You're like, Jesus, do I even belong there? How am I going to fit in? Will they welcome me? You know, like, because all you've been surrounded with that low vibrational energy for so long. It's like, how do I take that leap into this new energy when I don't feel like I fit there? And what I mentioned as well is, like, we feel like we're imposters in this new reality, but we're actually becoming the person we were always meant to be. So technically, we were an imposter in our old reality, because what that was learned behavior, that was conditioning, that was our environment, that was how we thought we should fit in. Whereas this is actually shedding of all of that, those layers, shedding of all of that fear to become our best selves, to become who we were always meant to be. So it's just getting over that part in the middle. It's like you're torn between two worlds, but like literally your world is actually this new world.
Yeah, and I think I've heard people talk about there's also can be quite a loneliness in that middle place, can't there? Because you're not quite fitting in with your old associates, but you don't quite yet feel or have not yet met enough to have that new set of associates or friends or whatever, and it can be quite lonely, that transitional period, can't it?
It can, especially for me. I've had to walk away from a lot of people that were holding me back. And the best thing to do when you're trying to move forward is find a like-minded community or seek mentors that are on that vibration. And you know, I've sought a lot of mentors, and literally with their guidance, I was able to release the self-limiting beliefs that were keeping me in that old reality.
Yeah.
So,
and so that's a really important thing, if you are suffering from imposter syndrome, is to have an awareness of your thoughts, isn't it? And those that when it's cropping up, to be able to talk to yourself about that, or reframe it, or recognize it for what it is. So signs generally that someone might be suffering from imposter syndrome, because some people can be in long-term imposter syndrome, you know, like when what we've been talking about just now really is more about the these transitional periods, but some people can be stuck maybe even in the same job but feeling imposter syndrome, feeling like they never really are worthy of being there, and that somebody one day will find out that they're not what everyone thinks they are. And so the symptoms of that, if someone, they're likely to have a lot of self-doubt, whether they say it out loud, probably don't say it out loud because they're worried that people are going to realize that they're an imposter. Often people will say, oh, I've been lucky, you know. Overworking, being reluctant to get help, and feeling undeserving. So when we're talking about spiritual journeys, I don't know whether that's so much the same kind of signs, perhaps, because I don't think you would be thinking that you're lucky so much, would you? Do you think?
Well, no, when I look back, you know, there was, when I was general operative in the factory and I was brought up to supervisor, initially I was like, oh, I don't belong here. How am I supposed to tell anyone what to do? I can barely look after myself. And, you know, I did feel like an imposter at the start, but you realize, after a while, you do realize that it's not just luck. It's because you have that talent within you. And once you keep putting in that work, you start to realize that you do deserve that position. You know, and you know, it's trying to see beyond that I suppose that self-limiting belief that you don't belong there. But you were chosen for this for a reason. You're on this path for a reason. This is happening for a reason. You know, you do belong here. And it's just to get over that initial, you know, trepidation of what am I doing here? Or, you know, do I belong, or do I deserve this? But you do realize once you put in that hard work, this is who you really are. This new person is who you're supposed to be, you know, and it's not about blind luck or anything like that. I know that's what we tell ourselves. This is all these self-limiting beliefs that keep coming in, and, you know, that ego mind. But it's just, you know, think about it. You know, you're here for a reason. The universe isn't putting you on this path for no reason. You know, this is your calling, you know. your purpose is going to pull you along. So that imposter syndrome should go away with, with the embodiment.
Yeah,
Yeah, with time.
yeah. And I think in any kind of transitional period, it could be changing jobs, or maybe going to university, or changing the place that you live, or any kind of transitional part, even being a parent. There's definitely imposter syndrome when you're a parent. You're like, hell, I don't know what I'm doing. You're like, but obviously you're not imposter because you've got a child and you have to deal with it. But you're like, you're ill prepared. Let's say you feel very ill prepared, no matter how much you prepare beforehand. And I think it's important to remember that confidence, if you feel like an imposter, it's probably because you're lacking confidence in what you're doing. And confidence is built through repetition. Like, so your first time, you're just not going to be confident. And it's kind of, it's being aware of that, and being okay with that, it's not got to be perfect, and that doing something, each little step is a step in the right direction. Yeah,
that's it. We fear starting at all because we fear that it's going to be imperfect. We think everything has to be a certain way. But just, I learned this from a course, CCIA, committed, consistent, imperfect action. Once you keep doing something every day, you will get good at it. You will, first time I started doing videos, oh my God, I was petrified, my voice was shaky. It was something I thought that I could never actually get good at. And I just knew that I had to share my message. And I just kept sharing my message. And the more I shared my message, the more confident I got, the more I was, the tech was good. Everything just started to flow better. And even how I speak flows better. It just comes naturally to me now. And this is something that was an alien concept to me. I thought I would be typing content for my whole life because I was just so afraid of camera. But literally, practice makes perfect. And that's what does build your confidence, definitely.
Yeah, well, and actually, I was the same. I didn't like being on camera. I didn't like. I wasn't. I would only like a photograph from a certain sort of angle, and I don't like. And I'd also like take a few, and then it'd be like, no, that was not good enough. That's not good enough. And I'm not a particularly vain person, but at all really. But still, you're like, I've got to get it from the right angle. And the problem with is like, it's just, this is what you look like. Deal with it. And so I used to shy away from cameras and videos. But wanting to be a coach, I was going to have to be comfortable on a video. And like when I first started doing coaching, I'd have a tiny bit of anxiety just initiating that Zoom with somebody I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I chat a FaceTime with somebody. I'd be fucking so nervous. I'd be looking at myself all the time going, what the fuck, like?
Yeah.
It's so scary. Now I just go on a call with you or whatever, and it's just grand. It's like a normal phone call.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing. It's you don't have like, I look great thoughts, right? It's that you just don't have those bad thoughts anymore, isn't it? And I feel like it's what we shouldn't be aiming for is like loads of positive thoughts to counteract the bad thoughts. We just need to have less of the bad ones. Like, that's why reframing is great, because it's taking something that's framed in a negative way and lessening it, not necessarily making it positive, but changing it so it's not negative, so that it's progressive.